Hi, my name's Ben Allen. I'm the principal of Allen CIO. Today, I have the opportunity to present a panel of friends who are experts in manufacturing technology. We're going to be focusing on Microsoft 365 today, and my presenters, who I'd like to introduce to you now, are all experts, as I said, in various technologies as it relates to Microsoft 365. So if I could bring up the other presenters, I have three people. Starting in the lower left, that's Leslie Kenney. Leslie is the VP of Marketing for Crayon. Dicey Matthews is in the top right. She's the lab manager for Probi. And Jason Scow is the quality manager also for Probi. I've gotten to know all three of these people over the last year and found that they have an immense amount of knowledge that they bring to their jobs that is exciting, and I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to share it with all of you. And so what we're going to do today is I'm going to let each of them share some ideas that they have that relate to manufacturers who are trying to communicate, collaborate better. They want to be more organized. And so I'd like to kick this off by starting with Dicey Matthews. So Dicey, you're someone who is strong at Power App, Power Automate. You've gone into a number of different technologies, but share with us what you'd like to talk about with us today as it relates to manufacturing.
Sure. What I want to talk about is some tools on how to manage tasks and projects. So Office 365 has a couple of tools that you can use. You can use Microsoft Planner, and then there's also the To-Do app. So they're very different and very similar in so many ways. It can kind of get confusing as to what to use and when to use it. So that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today then.
So go ahead, Dicey, take it away.
Okay. So first of all, I'll start with Planner. Planner is a very nice tool where you can not only keep track of tasks and due dates, but also assignments and have asynchronous communication about the task. And let's see if I can share my screen here. Okay. So are we seeing a screen up? Screen two. Here we go. There we go. So with Planner, and that's easily seen in your O365 apps. You can create a project planner. So here we have a project planner for facility audit. So it's very easy to create kind of an electronic Kanban board. So if you need to have tasks move through a series of tasks, it's a lot easier to use Planner for that. So on this one, it's just you start off with a new audit finding and you can move through doing root cause analysis and sending your response to the auditor, creating your change controls or any sort of status that you need. You can even categorize each task and add subtasks for each task as well. So you can have one major task, say one audit finding, and add in all your subtasks underneath. You can also send conversations amongst each other of those that are assigned to the task as well. And the easy thing is if you've moved it, say I've got this new audit finding, I've already started my CAPA, it's really easy to just move these from one status to another like you would with a Kanban board. And it's also easy to filter these by when they're due or even by your labels and look at those, just those specific things that you're looking for. So it's real nice. On top of that, you can also look at charts to see where you're at with your tasks. So the best thing to use Planner for is really for projects or for things that you have tasks that have to move through specific tasks. So it's easy to see where along that status board your tasks are. So that's, yes, go ahead.
Oh, may I ask, how are you using Planner within the lab right now?
So Planner right now is for all of our main projects. So we keep different projects under different what's called buckets. That's the statuses up here. and we're able to keep track of where we are on certain projects and what tasks are done, or even just a reminder of when things are due. So that's currently what we're using Lab Planner in the lab for.
You're referring to the different buckets as well, where you can put things in different planner boards. Is it easy for a particular individual to just see all the items that they've been assigned?
Yeah, it's pretty easy to come in here and just filter by who's assigned. So I can look at myself and just see what's assigned to me. The other thing is if you're using Teams, then it's a lot easier too in Teams that you can go in and look at your items in Planner in Teams as well. Or you can group by different things of who it's assigned to, and you can go along and see who's got an assignment. So it makes it really easy. With a regular Kanban board, you have just the one way to look at it, just view by status. But here in the planner, it's a lot easier to filter and regroup it how you need to look at it. And also, you don't have to go to a specific location where your Kanban board is at. It's easy to see it from wherever you have access to your computer. The one thing that Planner does not do well is if you have recurring tasks. So if you have a task, say you have to clean a certain piece of equipment every month, or any of those kind of tasks that are run on a certain frequency, those you can't really do too well in Planner. There's no ability to do a recurring task, which you can do in tasks or to do. So this is the My To Do app. And the really nice thing about the My To Do app is that you can create as many task lists as you need. You can also share those task lists with other team members so that you can actually add assignments for these. So here I've got a preventive maintenance task list. So it's really nice to be able to create recurring tasks for certain PM duties. And once it gets clean, it gets marked off. It'll go ahead and create a new one for the next month if it's a monthly or weekly. So that's one nice thing, and it's easy to assign to anyone in the group as well. And this one also has subtasks and the ability to put in notes and add documentation. So it's a really nice way to keep track of recurring tasks in here. And if you like to use the email flagging in your email in Outlook, where you can flag emails of when you want to work on them, you can easily look at it in your to-do app. It'll show up any flagged emails in there. Any planner assignments show up in here as well. And you can mark anything as important and it will show up in your important list. And the really nice thing about the to-do app is that you can actually add things to your My Day list. It's real easy to go in here and just add the things that you want to work on today. So when you start getting 50, 60 tasks, it's kind of overwhelming to look at all of them, but it's really easy to just add just the few that you need to do for the day in this My Day section, and it'll be there for the day. It resets the next morning and you can add new stuff. One thing I like to do, especially to keep organized, is to keep this up all day so I know what I'm working on and what I need to work on next. And it's really nice to check something off and hear the little ding that it shows when you check things off. It's a little rewarding. It feels like you did something. So I really enjoy it. It's a nice place. The to-do app is really a nice place to keep all of your tasks organized, whether it's in your to-do list, shared group task list, or in your planner. So it's a really great place to keep track of all of those things.
The tasks in To Do, what is that the same as what's in Microsoft Outlook?
The flagged emails are. So if you're in your Microsoft Outlook and you flag any of your emails, they will show up on your flagged email list. So you can actually keep track of those as well and add those to your My Day list as well.
Got it. Do you also go for, I believe there's mobile apps for To Do and Planner. Do you utilize those on your phone, or do you just use it when you're at the office?
I mostly just use it on the office. Yes, you can add it to your mobile app. There is a mobile app for each one, and you can add both of them to your phone.
if I heard you clearly, I think what I understood in regards to planners, that Planner is a great tool to manage tasks across your department for different things that need to be addressed. But when you get to a reoccurring task, it's better to do that in To Do.
Yes.
Am I understanding correctly that most of those tasks, they're better in Planner, they're better in buckets there versus putting those in To Do? Is that what I kind of heard you say?
Yeah. So when you're looking at what your project is and you're looking at your tasks, it's a lot easier to keep track of say one big project that has multiple tasks in Planner. So if you have a specific project that you're working on, that you have multiple people working on it with multiple tasks, then it's really easy to keep it in Planner. And even if you need to see a status on each, you can create a bucket for each status and move it along so that you can keep them organized. To do is more for personal tasks and for recurring tasks. It didn't used to have the ability to share lists, but now that it does have the ability to share lists, you can also use it for team tasks as well if they're um, maybe not as complicated as they might be in a project. So it's a lot easier to keep it there as well, especially if it's a recurring weekly, monthly, quarterly task. It's a lot easier to keep in there because you can, once you complete it, it'll automatically create a new task for you for the next month or for the next week.
Dicey, this is terrific information. This is exactly what I was hoping to hear are your best practices as it relates to both those applications. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, no problem.
Jason, let's go to you next. Your topic today is a fun one, I think, because all manufacturing companies deal with standard operating procedures. And I feel like so many of them are still stuck in the paper days, not realizing what's available to them in Microsoft 365. So please, Jason, share with us about standard operating procedures in Microsoft 365.
Sure thing, Ben. Thanks for having me. I'm always so excited to evangelize on SOPs. I'm the weirdo who loves writing them, and I've built a career around it. So one of the biggest challenges we face in manufacturing is standardization of process. It's critical to quality. It's critical to fulfilling our customers' needs in a timely manner and being a successful business. And historically, one of the challenges we face is we put a lot of effort and time into developing standardized processes, having SOPs and forms and other documents to make sure we're doing things the same every single time across all of our operators, across all of our operation lines. And then getting that into the hands of our operators, huge challenge, especially with paper-based systems, which most of us are running or have run in the past. How do you make sure that your operators have the most recent procedure? How do they have it available at their fingertips so that they can reference it while they're running things on the line? It's one thing to read and understand an SOP, which is language everyone will have heard. And it's another thing to be able to read and understand it and then refer back to it 2 weeks in the future or a month or 2 months or whatever time frame it may be. And so historically, the way we've managed that is having a lot of SOP binders and forms that we make copies of and we distribute out to the different areas of the plant, which is its own headache from an administrative standpoint unto itself. Usually your quality team has to keep track of where all these copies are going, go collect the old ones, distribute the new ones, and all that fun stuff that adds absolutely no value, that your customer's not going to pay you for that. You can't add that onto the cost of the product per se. So I want to talk a little bit about how we can utilize technology, specifically SharePoint, to alleviate and address that issue and also enhance our SOP systems and things like that. So one of the ways that we can really address this is by leveraging SharePoint and uploading our documents into document libraries in SharePoint. And this key advantage that this has is we can upload our signed procedures. We have full audit history. We have full versioning history. We can see what the history of that SOP is, which is really critical for audit trails. The other really nice thing about this is our operators, when they go to pull an SOP, they only have access to the most recent approved version. So that addresses that need to have people going back and forth and pulling a bunch of paperwork all the time. Another key thing about utilizing SharePoint is we can take technology into the manufacturing line through iPads or other tablets and reference procedures and pull them up in real time on the line. They don't have to go find the SOP book out in the main production floor, bring it back to their workstation, thumb through it. We can have an iPad right there. They pull it up. They pull up SharePoint. They do a search for their SOP or go to a pre-made SharePoint site, perhaps, where you've linked all the pertinent SOPs for that line or process. And it makes it real easy for them to just pull up and access these SOPs in real time on the line. And this is an extraordinarily powerful thing for our operators to have access to. Another thing that really we can leverage in the SharePoint environment to make these things easy to access is metadata in our document libraries. In a manufacturing site, you're going to have 200, 300 different SOPs, which is a challenge to navigate, even for the people administering the system, certainly for the operators. So, I alluded to it earlier, we can utilize and leverage metadata to build really comprehensive lists of procedures that are really flexible. We can populate our metadata so that we identify which procedures apply to this tablet press. We can use metadata to say which procedures apply to this process, so everything that applies to our blending process, for example. And we can create these views in SharePoint where we're automatically filtering out by these different metadata tags. And then we can create custom views, and that generates a link, essentially a web link, which we can embed in a SharePoint site or OneNote or any other piece of this ecosystem, where people can click on it and it takes them to that list, to that view, and they're only seeing the SOPs that are pertinent to what they're needing at that time. So we can really leverage all these different pieces to make it really simple for our operators to be informed and for our operators to always be performing the tasks that we need them to the same every single time. And that's the power of this ecosystem when it comes to our documents.
I'm wondering if our audience is somewhat curious about metadata. You explained it and talked about some metadata tags. Can you talk a little bit more about that with someone who's never actually heard the term metadata and what it means?
Right. So think of metadata as like a search tag, almost like for a search engine you might use online. When you put a file into a document library in SharePoint, we can create different buckets of information that we populate for every file that we upload, and that's the metadata that goes into this. So we might have a bucket or column of info for which equipment this procedure you've uploaded, what does it apply to, and you could populate all of your equipment in there. And it's limited by your imagination, really. What kinds of metadata, what kinds of filtering would you want to have for all of your documents in that library? So all of your SOPs, you might have one for process, you might have one for department, you might have one for site if you're working with multi-site production facilities, you might have ones for pieces of equipment. So that's metadata in a nutshell, and it's extraordinarily powerful for this sorting and filtering that we talked about a little bit earlier.
I want to also touch on something that you and Dicey, I know, are amazing at. Would you speak a little bit about the workflows and how they incorporate approvals and potentially notifications / reminders to move things on? How does that relate to SOPs?
Right. So once you've got your SOPs in a library and you've sorted that out, how do you make these things accessible? It really opens up and gets crazy when you start talking about Power Automate and being able to build workflows that are almost fully automated to take over a lot of the administrative work that your quality team is potentially doing. So we can leverage Power Automate to automatically, when we upload a document into a library, we can do a lot of different things with it. We can automate an approval process. We can send notifications out. We can link them between different libraries. So you might have a working library for your SOPs that are in like a Word document format or something like that, that's controlled by your quality team. And then you can run Power Automate to, once it goes to trigger an approval process, route it through your ops leaders who need to sign off on it, your quality leaders who need to sign off on it. And once you get all those signatures in place, populate it into your library for general use as a PDF potentially, so it can't even be altered. And these things can all be automated through Power Automate once you're familiar with how to build those out. And it's really simple. There's like no programming involved at all, which is why I can do it. I can't program anything. I'm a journalist. I went to school for journalism. I don't know how to do that stuff. But Power Automate's really simple. It has a nice user interface. You don't have to know any coding. So once you figure out how to build these libraries, it's easy to build these automation steps.
Yeah.
It takes so much of the administrative labor out of it so that your teams can focus on value-added activities.
Jason, that's awesome. So it is exciting. I like to touch on the one point that Microsoft offers hundreds of templates for those novices who want to learn how to jump on that. I'd like to finish off with bringing Leslie Kenney on. Leslie is absolutely key to the knowledge that Jason and Dicey have, because she took us through a customer immersion experience back in March, which is where we got to play with Microsoft technologies that are all part of the 365 suite in a moderated way. And it was, Leslie, it's you to thank personally why Dicey and Jason are so good at this. So talk to us about manufacturing organization today, if you would.
Sure. I chose to focus on the OneNote technology. It's something that I use every day in my position at Crayon. And you might be saying, wow, why is a marketer talking to us about manufacturing and organization? Well, this is really about internal communication. And as a marketer, and specifically an IT marketer, and I am that Microsoft CIE facilitator, which means that I jumped through all of the Microsoft hoops to make sure that I know hopefully almost every feature of what happens in Microsoft 365. But I want to talk to you specifically about OneNote. And then I'm going to tell you 3 reasons to use it. I'm going to demo 3 of my favorite features. And then at the very end, I am going to tell you what I believe is Microsoft OneNote's really most redeeming feature. So I'm going to share out my screen. And in terms of manufacturing, I have created what is a notebook for selecting a new ERP system. So this is a little bit about what the OneNote experience looks like. And you can see I have a few tabs up here. These are just some general notes. And then I have a tab for my internal meetings and notes around all of those meetings. You can see I have an agenda, who's in attendance. I can check off some action items if after the meeting. And then finally, I have an area for pin notes. Now, you may not know this about, I'm going to write my name. I can write my name here on the screen, and then I can just grab my little lasso tool and draw a circle around it and say, hey, let's make that text. Oh, it didn't get my L. Better luck next time. So actually, this feature is really great, and you can also do ink to math. So that's a little bit about the normal organization. And then as you can see, I have a section group here with all my vendors. These are all of the ERP vendors. And I actually modeled this off of a manufacturing company who was doing an ERP selection project using OneNote. And I was really impressed with the way they organize their information. So in this instance, we have a video that talks about the functionality and ease of use of Microsoft Dynamics ERP. Now, this video is a link from YouTube. Let me make this a little bit smaller. So we can either click out to the YouTube link, or we can actually watch the video right here within the notebook. Okay, that's not something you can do in Microsoft Word or in a PDF. On our second tab, we have just a link out to some information about how Microsoft Dynamics ERP helped Renault Sport. And I actually did that by saying insert a screen clipping. So I just inserted that right in here, and we can read that through this link here. And then on my technology page, I've actually inserted a PDF. And I've done it in two ways. One is I added the entire PDF here, but you can also insert the entirety of a PDF on a page in your notebook so that you can read, or might I say, search. So I can actually search for copy. If I'm searching for competitive, as you can see, it pulls right here. So super fantastic features. So here are the 3 reasons to use OneNote. Let me go back to my general tab. The first one is the information is more accessible. In OneNote, you're not buried with information in a PDF or a Word document or a PowerPoint or an Excel document. And you can search across all your notebooks. I probably have 50 notebooks in my daily life that I've been keeping for more than 5 years. So I can go back to my notes from 2015 by simply using this little search feature here. The second reason I like to use OneNote is it's this familiar interface with the ribbon. We all know the ribbon with home and insert. Very familiar to the Microsoft 365 way of doing business. And last but not least, and we've talked about this with some of the other applications, is it's very mobile friendly. So if I have my trusty phone here and I decide to take a picture of something in real life, I can insert it directly into a OneNote page, and everyone who has access to that notebook can see that. So the 3 reasons, my top 3 reasons to use are that information is more accessible, it's that familiar interface, and it's very mobile friendly. So onto the 3 demos. I demoed the search feature here. And so let's just say we want to search for ERP. We know we're going to have a whole bunch of instances. I have some here in the title of my notebook on this particular page, and it even shows deleted notes around that search. So searching is fantastic in OneNote, and it'll even search the contents of that PDF. The second reason that I really, really like to use OneNote is, let's just say I have somebody who wants to know about the functionality and ease of use around Dynamics ERP. I can literally say copy link to page, and then I can just send someone a link to this page. And as long as they have access to this notebook, they can literally click on this link and it'll take them directly to that page. Once again, that helps with making the information more accessible. That's not something that you can really do without a lot of behind the scenes work in Microsoft Word or in a PDF. So for that reason, I like to use OneNote. The other, and probably my most favorite feature here, is being able to go into my email and send information directly from email into a OneNote notebook page. So this email is really about Microsoft Dynamics 365. It's a guided tour. And so if I decide that I want to send this to my notebook, all I have to do is click on this little move icon, and I can say, okay, that's going to go in my ERP selection notebook, and it's going to go in this section group under Microsoft Dynamics. And when I click OK, as you can see, it is literally inserted the contents of this email into the correct place in my notebook. Let me show you that one more time. I have another email around MSP research that came from a vendor, and this guy has sent me, what, 4 or 5 or 6 PDF attached. I don't want to have to download the PDF and then re-upload it to OneNote. So what I can do, once again, is just say, oh, I want this to go to my ERP selection notebook, and that's going to go in the general tab. And now it's added every single one of these PDFs along with the content of the email to this particular place in the OneNote notebook. Now, last but not least, I want to tell you what I believe is the most redeeming feature of Microsoft OneNote. Although you can export information from here in the form of a PDF, or you can print out a page, it is really difficult to actually export this entire notebook and re-import it somewhere else. So if you do have information or intellectual property that you would like to keep circulating internally, and maybe throw up some barriers to being able to export that, OneNote is a great choice to be able to keep everything internal. And in a lot of ways, it's more like navigating a website, as you can link to pages. And rather than being able to say, okay, I'm going to export this and email it to 25 people, it's a little bit more difficult to do that in OneNote. And for that reason, I really, really like to be able to use this for information that maybe I want locked down a little more without a bunch of really specific security measures.
Mm-hmm. Leslie, that's terrific. I have to ask, do you use OneNote just professionally, or do you use it in your personal life as well?
I cannot believe you asked me that. And I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I use it in my personal life. I have a home improvement notebook. I shouldn't tell you this. I have a notebook that has copies of pictures of all of my credit cards on it, because how often are you buying something online and you're like, oh, I can't remember the code on my credit card. I have all my credit cards stored in here. I have my to-do list for my house, my household improvement projects. I use it everywhere and frequently, and I have been for a long time.
Leslie, that is a wonderful overview. So I want to just close this up for the day and thank all of you that this is exactly what I was hoping, giving away some tips about Microsoft 365 and how it's being used in the manufacturing world with real world stories. So Dicey, Leslie, Jason, thank you so much. I appreciate all of you. Great job, and have a wonderful day.